This is Fight Fans Radio.
Let's get ready to rumble! Oh my God! Unbelievable! Down goes Frazier! Down goes
Frazier! It's time! You're listening to New Mexico's only mixed martial arts and boxing podcast, The Low Blow, on AtomCombatSports.com and Fight Fans Radio. It's episode 129 of The Low Blow on SouthwestFight.com, USCombatSports.com, and Fight Fans Radio. I am Justin Goodrum, joined by Jorge Hernandez. What's going on, man?
Man, what's going on? How you doing? Rough week, man.
Yeah, I'm pretty sick, and the Niners lost the Super Bowl, so I'm not doing so hot. But today, hopefully the show will pick up my spirits. We're going to talk about Bellator's invasion of Rio Rancho. We're going to break down UFC 156, which I think both our picks pretty much did terrible. We're going to break down UFC's attempt at these crazy rankings here. And we're going to break down Bellator's reality show featuring Albuquerque's own Greg Jackson. Before we get into that, take care of some housekeeping issues. As always, you can get in touch with the show through email, through lowblow505@gmail.com. Also through Five Fans Radio, through Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Ustream. So feel free to ask us any questions you want. Criticisms, compliments, we'll take them all. But first, Jorge, we have a special guest. Can you introduce him?
Yes, sir. We are joined by Judge and MMA's Adrian Cruz, undefeated fighter who has recently fought under both Evolution and King of the Cage. February 28th, under the Bellator banner, he will be fighting local Jackson's MMA product, Nick Gonzalez. Adrian Cruz, welcome. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Good.
So this fight, man, with Nick Gonzalez, it's something that a lot of people here locally are buzzing about. How does it feel to, you guys are the talk of the town pretty much in the MMA community because of this fight between the two of you.
It's pretty crazy. I never thought that I would ever be in that sort of topic. When I first started training, I never even had the intention of fighting. It just kind of evolved into this stage. But me and Nick are excited to fight each other. We're actually friends outside of this fight. We've known each other for quite some time. We've never trained with each other, but we've known each other for quite some time at a grappling tournament a long time ago and been friends ever since. So we're both very excited about this. It's nothing but good things for both of us, and we're very excited for this opportunity to fight for Bellator, one of the biggest fight companies there is. So definitely excited and been working really hard to make sure that I perform well.
Usually in mixed martial arts, there's a lot of, kind of tension between, mixed martial arts fighters that are friends. They don't want to fight each other or their teammates. You guys seem pretty enthusiastic about, fighting each other and really taking the approach of it's going to benefit both you guys. How did you come up with that mindset?
Well, me and him have actually never trained with each other, so it's one of those things like I don't know anything about his game, or I've never trained with him to know his weaknesses or anything like that. And we're friends, but we're fighting from different camps. We're working the same camp before, so normally I wouldn't want to fight a friend or someone that I've trained with, but because it is such a big opportunity, we're both looking at it as an opportunity to launch our careers and hopefully continue to develop our relationship with Bellator. And it's kind of a no-brainer. I mean, you can't pass up an opportunity like that. So we both talked before we actually agreed to it, and he reached out to my coach, and we kind of talked about it, and we wanted to make sure everything was cool before, and not only that we remain friends and everything's cool after as well.
Now, have you ever seen him fight before? I mean, he has fought under the the Jackson's MMA series here locally. Have you seen Nick fight before?
I actually have. We've actually fought on the same card before. I saw him fight at a Jackson's card a long time ago, and we actually fought on the card together in Colorado. My memory of it isn't too clear, but I do recall watching him fight. But I was fighting at the same time, and it was kind of hard to pay attention. But I've seen him in action before, and I know he's a real tough guy, really good on the ground, very technical. So it'll be definitely a good fight between both of us.
Now, you stayed most in Rio Rancho, trading in that city compared to Albuquerque, which has the more known gyms such as Jackson's and Fit and Hoge Bar. Do you think Rio Rancho as a city gets kind of disrespected in terms of not getting that attention of producing quality fighters?
No, I don't think so. I think that it's just newer to the game. Gyms in Rio Rancho just recently started opening up in the last couple of years, so I don't think that it has anything to do with the quality of fighters coming out of Rio Rancho. I just don't think they've had the tenure as a Jackson's or a Fit has had compared to us. So I think now that MMA is so mainstream and good fighters are being shown no matter where they're from, now that there's some coming out of Rio Rancho, we're getting some publicity out there, and people are starting to recognize that, you don't have to just go to a big gym like Jackson or a big gym like Fit. There's up-and-coming gyms that are producing quality fighters, and you'll be able to get the same kind of training and get to work out with some of the, top performers in the sport right now. So I think it's just that exposure is just finally starting to come out to Rio Rancho.
Yeah. Now, for people that don't know your background, one, how did you get started with MMA? And you're also not originally from New Mexico, right?
Correct. I'm originally from California. I lived out in the Bay Area in a town called Salinas. I lived out there from the time I was 1 year old till I was 15. I moved out here to New Mexico, to Albuquerque, when I was 15 years old. I was a freshman in high school. But what got me started is I wrestled my whole life. I started, wrestling with my grandpa and my cousins when I was young with junior wrestling, and continued that in high school, and got that work ethic and really the base for my MMA game. And then I actually was in a very, very bad car accident when I was 18, and I fell off like a 400-foot cliff in a truck and couldn't walk and broke my legs and all kinds of stuff. And when I finally got completely rehabilitated after surgeries and stuff, which was a few years later, I think I was 25 or 26 by the time everything was done, I noticed I was pretty out of shape, and I wanted to just get back in shape and start working out again. And I found Crucifix Gym out in Rio Rancho, and that's where I started. And when they noticed that I had wrestling, I was able to pick up jiu-jitsu pretty fast. They asked me to do a grappling tournament. I did fairly well, went out to Grappler's Quest, won. Then they asked me to do a kickboxing fight, and I hadn't even really been training with that, but I said, why not? Did very well with that, and then a month later after that, I had my first cage fight. And that, from when I first started training to my first MMA fight, was within 6 months.
Wow. And talk about that injury or those injuries that you sustained. I mean, how difficult was that to come back?
Well, it was pretty hard, just because I had to get used to just doing things differently. I had to change a lot of ways of how I approached my technical aspects of my game. But once I started working out and strengthening everything back up again, now everything's back to normal. I'm 100%. I don't have any injuries. Any of the injuries I had in the past are completely gone. So really it was just getting back into it and just working out and getting strong and learning my techniques and making sure I was using my strength along with my technique and making sure everything works together as one, and practicing and practicing and practicing. And now those injuries are just a memory.
I went to your press conference. It seemed like all the fighters in the car were pretty excited to be fighting for Bellator. Can you kind of describe kind of the vibe of this show compared to, a Jackson's MMA show or a local show happening in New Mexico? Does this Bellator show have a different feel to it in terms of not only what's on the line, but just what the show means to having it in New Mexico?
Well, I think the difference is it's really a springboard. I mean, Bellator is such a big company now, and they're growing, and they're, competing with UFC. It's a big opportunity for the people fighting on the card because it could launch their career. It could help get them into stardom. Where fighting on a Jackson's is a great opportunity or fighting on King of the Cage or Evolution. It's a great opportunity, but it just doesn't have the exposure that a Bellator has, where you're going to be on Spike TV or have it streamed on Spike.com. It's just a bigger venue and a bigger stage for us to showcase our talents, and because that is the case, it's very exciting for everybody, and it's also great to do it, in your hometown. So I think that's why there was so much excitement around it.
Yeah, and one more question before you actually go. Name the only UFC champion to ever come out of Salinas, California.
Cain.
Cain Velasquez, yes, sir. You're in good company, man.
Exactly. I make sure I knew that one.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that. I was like, I couldn't believe it, coming out of the Bay Area and from a small town. And I have family out there that are starting to train, that are following me, so they're excited. And, I'd love to get back out there and go train some of my friends and family that are training now. But,
And finally, Adrian, message any of your fans. Do you have a Twitter or anywhere people can follow you?
Yeah, I have the whole shebang. I have a Twitter, it's Killer Cruz. I have Instagram. I have Facebook as well. And I want to say thank you to all my friends that support me and come watch me fight. And I want to say thank you to my coaches, Scott Marlowe, Robin Marlowe, Rich Chavez, all my teammates that help me train, and my sponsors, the OTM, Elite Warrior Armament, Vandal Eyewear, and I'm always looking for more sponsors, so help a brother out.
so hit them up on the Instagram or Twitter if you guys want to sponsor them. Definitely, it's the most anticipated local card. It's probably the most anticipated fight on that card, to be honest. No disrespect to the guys fighting for the title, but here in the city and in the state, your fight with Nick Gonzalez is the most anticipated. So again, February 28th, Santa Ana Star Center, Adrian Cruz against Nick Gonzalez. It's the most anticipated fight that we've had here locally in a while. So best of luck, and thank you very much for joining us, Adrian.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be a part of your guys' show, and thank you guys for having me, and I'm looking forward to talking to you guys again.
Yeah, and tell your boss we said thank you for letting you take an extra long break here.
Will do. She doesn't know about it yet, so.
Oh, then she will. All right, man. Take care. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
All right, see you guys later. Thanks, guys.
That was Adrian. Man. Yeah, that was Adrian Cruz. You can see him, as Jorge said, February 28th on Spike TV, 10 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Mountain Time, fighting Nick Gonzalez on the Spike, probably on the Spike.com prelims, so you can catch that out online. Before we get into the standing 5 count, man, I was at the press conference. I know if you listen to the press conference audio, I was pretty amazed at these guys, demeanor, coming up to the podium and it's like splitting, a little bit of the background and who they're fighting. I don't think you get that much information through even a UFC press conference. You watch, a UFC presser, they say 2 words or cliched stuff, and these guys are ready to chat it up and totally talk forever. So I think these guys are pretty excited to fight for Bellator.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's the excitement and the anticipation, just because we're known as a fight town, but yet these big cards don't come. It's been 5 years since we had a big card make it here with the WEC, so people are just excited. And just because of that, we're piggybacking off the ESPN card that was here within the local area. And for boxing, who knows what this might turn into, because just back-to-back months with the national stage for combat sports on New Mexico and the Albuquerque, Santa Fe, Rio Rancho area, it's big. And these guys have a reason to be excited, as should the fans.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, as always, you can get in touch with the show through email, through lowblow505@gmail.com. We're also on Facebook and on Twitter and also on YouTube, youtube.com/lowblow505. That has all of Jorge's interviews, has also our Best of 2012 show, which you should probably check out for our picks of the best of this past year. So, man, let's get into the standing 5 count. Is our top 5 stories of combat sports this past week. And I guess what's making news the most is a new challenger in the UFC featherweight division. It looks like Anthony Pettis, because of a text message he sent Dana White, looks like he'll be fighting Jose Aldo. So I guess, you have Dana White's number. All you have to do is just text him, and he'll give you a title shot. So maybe, Johnny Hendricks next time, text him, and maybe he'll get a title shot next time. But Anthony Pettis will be fighting Jose Aldo August 3rd. I mean, he said he'd be wanting to fight Algo because it's a tougher fight than Ben Henderson. So very disrespectful to Ben Henderson. Henderson's, I mean, I don't know if it's the tougher fight. He's no lightweight, Henderson is. So very controversial. I know Ricardo Lamas is very angry at this development. I've heard rumors of Lamas possibly fighting Korean Zombie. So it looks like the featherweight division, has a lot of spotlight placed on it, even if it's not the most positive of news for some of those fighters that have earned title shots in that division. But, Jorge, you have some news about Floyd Mayweather fighting not the ideal opponent for May 4th.
No, it is not. Floyd Mayweather says that a May 4th fight is almost done to face Devin Alexander, ladies and gentlemen. I don't understand why he would actually want to go against Devin. Devin had a subpar performance in his last fight. He won a world championship, but he was actually booed. I mean, Devin Alexander's a good guy. He's very humble. I've had the chance to meet the guy, and he's very down-to-earth, very nice guy. But when it comes to being a world-class fighter, I mean, he's not on that level yet. He's still very young, still in his mid-20s, so he still has time to develop into a great fighter. The world has been expecting for it to be Robert Guerrero or possibly even Canelo. Looks like Canelo's going to fight on that undercard, actually. And we still don't even know who Canelo's opponent is. We're still a few months away, though. I mean, but I hope they give their opponent at least time to train, man. I mean, this is just coming out of nowhere. So we'll definitely have to see who they actually go with to one face Mayweather and two face Canelo. The two guys aren't going to fight each other, I don't think. So that's still up in the air for both of those guys, man.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about another bizarre story, and I guess it's both boxing and mixed martial arts, I guess, kind of coming together here. Looks like Ricardo Mayorga looks to return to planning his MMA debut in 2013. Looks like he's going to return to the ring in boxing on February 22nd. It looks like to make his mixed martial arts debut pretty soon. Looks like he's going to turn 40 this year. He hasn't fought in 2 years. He was dominated by Miguel Cotto in 2011. I think you and me watched that fight together, man, at a sports bar where he just got destroyed. What do you think about Mayorga, even doing this? Is this kind of a publicity stunt? I mean, Mayorga, he's entertaining because he's controversial, but he's no spring chicken, and in all those cigarettes, I'm sure it's not helping him anything in terms of being in the ring, whatever sport he chooses.
His last fight was in 2011, man. This guy... How much do you want to see a 39-year-old smoking out-of-shape boxer? Let's be honest. As entertaining as he is, and let's not forget, he beat one of my heroes in Vernon Forrest. Man, it's just unreal that this guy beat Vernon Forrest. So it's very interesting to see what he does. It'll be a publicity stunt. I mean, this guy can still get his $50,000 to $80,000 a fight, to be honest. As sad as it sounds, it's still out there, and the opportunity is still there for him to make money and to at least still make a living. But at 39 years old, I don't think he's not going to make a title run. Most of us were even surprised when he was offered that fight against Miguel Cotto for the WBA middleweight championship that Austin Trout now holds. So, I mean, I think it's just a publicity stunt. This guy's in there, just to make a living, but no one can blame him. He talked his way to these championships, and he KO'd people on his way to the championship.
Mm-hmm. There's also news about Bellator and Spike's new endeavor. They're creating a reality show called Fight Master. Looks like we'll have Greg Jackson, Frank Shamrock, Joe Warden, and Randy Couture as the coaches. Looks like it'll be 32 fighters, kind of like the Ultimate Fighter, where they'll pretty much be fighting through a winner-go-home format in a Bellator tournament in a six-figure cash prize. It has producers of The Amazing Race in it. Very interesting, Dana White's media scrum following UFC 156. He's very angry with Randy Couture. He stated that Randy Couture is not Captain America, did some pretty shady stuff, if you believe what Dana White has to say. But nevertheless, we're going to get into this later on, but looks like this reality show is set to debut in the summer of this year. Looks like it's going to kind of have like a Ultimate Fighter, contender feel to it. Guys are going to have seeds, and they're going to be able to pick their coaches. So I think one of the guys in the press conference where they're announcing the show, man, were saying that these are pretty much four of Dana White's, at least three of them of Dana White's most, likable people. I mean, he hates all these guys. So we're very interested to see how this does, considering this is Dana White's, most wanted. But man, you have some news about Josh Barnett rejecting a USC deal. A lot of people were expecting Josh Barnett to sign with the Ultimate Fighting Championship, but looks like that's not to be.
Nope. Although Dana White seemed optimistic leading into 156 that it was going to go down, apparently is it a he said, she said kind of deal here, man?
I think so. I think Barnett, he's one of these guys similar to Rampage Jackson and similar to BJ Penn, where they have, other interests kind of outside of fighting, in particular with Josh Barnett. He likes the pro wrestling thing. And he likes to do, other things related to fighting, besides just being subservient to one company. So with Josh, I'm not really surprised. I mean, they said the money was fine. I just think, I bet you want to do some, pro wrestling stuff. And this is just a guess on my part, but I bet you want to do some other things and the UFC wouldn't agree to. You know how the UFC is, man. You belong to them. You do what they say. So we'll see what happens. But, I think for both parties, I don't think it really hurts too much. I think Bellator, this is a great opportunity for them to do that pro wrestling, mixed martial arts agreement like they're doing with King Mo. I think with Barnett, I think it would work a lot better since Barnett does do pro wrestling. He's a good talker, and, and pretty much in that heavyweight division, he automatically be the best guy, and you wouldn't have to worry about him leaving because, you pay him decently, and, he's not going to leave to the UFC. He has a good deal with Bellator and, TNA wrestling if that does happen. So it's
how many good years does he have left in him? I mean, this guy's going to turn 36 years old this year. I mean, you say 35-year-old, but the guy's like 10-1 in his last 11 fights. So
sure,
he's still a pretty formidable opponent, or fighter, I should say.
If he's in Bellator, he probably has another 10 years left, to be honest. Other than fighting like King Mo or Rampage Jackson. I mean, the competition is really not that good in that heavyweight division. I think even the UFC, I'd say 3 or 4 more years, I think he's kept himself relatively healthy. We'll have to wait and see. But definitely I don't think it's... Yeah, go ahead, man.
No, I was going to say, definitely go ahead and finish your thought.
No, I was just going to say that it's not a big loss for both companies. But you have another news story to add?
Yeah, there's one more thing. Earlier today, it was announced that Albuquerque's Tim Means, Moriarty Tim Means, fighting out of Fit NHB here in downtown Albuquerque, will be fighting Jorge Masvidal.
Oh, wow, okay.
So that fight is going down, and it's a very intriguing fight, especially coming off of that KO loss to the Sauna recently by
exactly. The Sauna won, man.
I went to Fit down there the other day, and he was actually pretty entertained by everything that everyone was doing, especially that someone listed that as a loss on the Wikipedia page, man. But yeah, so it's going down in San Jose, California. UFC on Fox 7. So April 20th, it's on the Benson Henderson and Gilbert Melendez undercard. So that card's looking to be pretty good. And you know what the crazy thing is? That card's probably going to be so loaded that this might not even make it to, it'll probably be on FX or one of the prelims.
Yeah. Which is good. I mean, now with the Fox cards, they're putting all the prelims on FX instead of Fuel. So that's more viewers for people to check that out. Let's go 2 rounds. Do you want to go first, or should I take it off?
Go ahead, man.
Start it off. Okay. That sounded kind of round there. But nevertheless, just before I get into it, 2 rounds where, yeah, I won't. 2 rounds is, myself and Jorge, we sound off on what's bugging us and what has our interest in combat sports. And really, what's going on with these UFC rankings. We're going to get into it more specifically later on. But my little thing on it is just like these rankings are much ado about nothing. Like I see a lot of these media members being outraged at some of these rankings that these individuals have created. If you go to UFC.com/rankings, you can actually see the individual ballots of each media member and what they've done. And to me, who cares? Because guess what the main decision is? It's Dana White's. Look at this whole featherweight situation. Look at Daniel Cormier, Nick Diaz. I can go on and on. I mean, at the end of the day, these rankings mean nothing because Dana White has the ultimate decision. So I don't know why people are getting so angry about, Daniel Cormier is not ranked, or, you put Chael Sonnen in the light heavyweight rankings. Who really cares? I mean, like Chael Sonnen was upset that he wasn't in the light heavyweight rankings. I mean, why should he care? He's getting a title shot. It shouldn't really matter. So at the end of the day, it's like these media members get so upset. And then when the UFC asks them to be in the poll, they reject it. They don't want to be in these media polls because they think it's a conflict of interest. So I don't really see what these big rankings are. They're kind of like, I guess, just for fun. I don't really see the point. I don't even know why Dana White agreed to this when he was so adamantly against it. So we'll get into it later on. I just think these rankings are a big waste of time. We should talk about more important things. How about you, man?
Mine is kind of silly. It actually has to do with fans and their chants. I mean,
okay. Cool.
You heard the presence of the Brazilians this past weekend, man. I mean, it's incredible the passion that they have for sports, and it's a lot of those Latin American countries also. I mean, we pretty much here as Americans, man, all we have is USA, and I mean, I would have been happy if I've at least got a Roll Tide during the damn fight, man, and I didn't. So I think that was my biggest beef is that the passion that the American fans have, similar to other Latin American countries or to the Latin American countries, is nowhere near where it should be. I mean, we can yell just as loud as the next guy when we see a knockout, but during the fight, I want to hear some chants, man.
Well, you gotta go to a wrestling show to hear chants. You know, like independent wrestling chants. Yeah, they're insane. You know, like old school, like ECW. That's
old ECW, man.
Inventive chants, or the Jerry Springer show. They're inventive with their chants too, man. Very creative. So maybe you put that Jerry Springer crowd, send them to a UFC event. They might rival those Brazilians. You never know. So, man, let's get into this UFC 156 recap. I know I did pretty horrible in these picks. A lot of people did. I want to talk about the undercard first, and let's talk about a guy that we had on our show a couple of weeks ago. Isaac Valley Flag beats East Edwards 29-28, 28-29, 29-28 split decision. What was your thoughts on this fight? Very close, but it really just showed how Isaac Valley Flag really is a scrappy fighter and really has some pretty impressive striking skills, considering East Edwards, a lot of people considered him more a technical striker.
Yeah, very technical, and that's what Isaac has some of the, I guess, criticism he's got in the past is that a lot of people think he's a slow fighter. If he's a slow fighter, then how come no one's blocking or dodging a lot of those punches he throws? I mean, he's very heavy-handed, and he's just very technical and very precise, and he demonstrated that. Just out of curiosity, man, what did you score this fight?
I had it 29-20. I thought it was very close. I think I remember that third round correctly. I think Flag kind of pulled it out at the end. I think it was very close. I don't think it wasn't like a dominating victory for both guys. I think I might get corrected here. Let's see. No, Jorge, that's Jorge asking Erica a question. But I think the fight was very close. I think when I heard a roundtable discussion on another MMA podcast, Tristan Critchfield, who we had on the show, they were talking about, which fight would be, the nominee of that 29-28 score, and they said this one. And I can see why, because I think both these guys are very similar in how they score points on the feet. So, I mean, the scoring seemed pretty right to me. I'm a fan of both guys. I don't see them really – that lightweight division is just so stacked, full of talent. It's going to take finishes to really move up the ladder. So while this is a big win for Isaac Valley Flag, I think he's going to need some finishes to really get in title contention.
I agree. As far as that fight, there was one round that I thought was extremely close. I actually thought they were going to give it to Eves just because he was such a veteran in the UFC. I thought they were going to lean his way, and when they didn't, I was actually surprised. I thought Isaac did enough to win the fight, but I thought Eves did just enough. So it was one of those fights that the judges got right. It was a split decision. You could have gone either way. I mean, even a draw I wouldn't have been upset with. Even if Eves would have gotten the decision, I was proud of how Isaac actually performed in his first UFC fight.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. And one thing you talked about the crowd earlier, the crowd booing this decision, that was just annoying, man. I mean, both guys just laid it out on the line. It's a very entertaining fight, and I just think whoever won that fight did not deserve to get booed.
No,
I
mean,
ridiculous.
Was it not an entertaining fight? I mean, what else did they
Absolutely.
want? I mean, there wasn't a knockout. It was as scrappy as a technical fight can get. So I mean, it was worth the money that they actually paid for. It's no reason for either of these guys to be booed. I know Eves wasn't aggressive. Maybe Valley Flag's aggression is what ultimately wanted for him, but neither guy deserved to get booed, man.
I agree with you. I want to talk about my personal favorite fight of the night, and that was Bobby Green defeating Jacob Volkman via submission, rear naked choke, round 3 at 425. A lot of talk in this fight was about Volkman in terms of he was going to have a big-time post-fight speech to say to Joe Rogan, how much he hates Obama, he hates Obamacare. He's very, controversial. Really, no one really gave Bobby Green a chance. on the pre-fight discussions that I've listened to. But just what an incredible fight, man. After being, flat out screwed from the stand-up by Kim Winslow, him coming back, getting that positioning and finishing Volkman, just truly incredible. So far, it's my favorite fight of the year. Just kind of the comeback aspect and just him finishing Volkman like that, especially because we've seen Volkman, dominate people on the ground. It's nice to see someone give him a taste of his own medicine. What do you think of that fight?
Well, I enjoyed it. I mean, especially when you think about when the submission actually came. I mean, it was about 30 seconds or so that were actually left from what I remember. That he was almost out of time. So it was it was very entertaining. I mean, I don't think a lot of people, expected the fight to go that way, but nonetheless, very entertaining fight from both of those guys.
No doubt. I want to touch on a couple of other fights here on the undercard. Taiwan Willie, impressive over Jay Huron. I think a lot of people, including myself, are thinking this might be the most boring fight of the night. I think we're dramatically wrong. Taiwan Willie just annihilating Jay Huron with a huge punch, round 1 at 36 seconds. This made me want to see Taiwan Willie fight Nate Marquardt again. I think that's a great fight rematch to make. Now that they're both on, the main stage of the UFC. What are your thoughts on Taiwan Willie? He had a lot of promise before that Nate Marquardt fight, but Marquardt pretty much put it on him, kind of derailing that hype train. Now Willie with his victory, beating a very game and respected Jay Huron. Can Taiwan Willie, be factored into that welterweight mix? I mean, we heard, Josh Koscheck did an interview. He's saying that, he should be considered, because he lost, a controversial split decision against Johnny Hendricks. Where do you see Taiwan Willie fitting into that welterweight picture?
I think he still needs to develop himself. He'll still need, I think, 1 or 2 more fights till we truly see where he's at, because it wasn't just the Nate Marquardt fight that actually derailed him. The fight before, I believe it was Jordan Maine or somebody that he fought, and he won by split decision. I mean, that fight was kind of where you were actually thinking, like, okay, how far can this guy go? Especially because the guy before that he fought was Paul Daly, and he did fairly well against Daly. So it was those 2 fights. I think he still needs to build some momentum to see where he's at. But nonetheless, first round KO, man, it was great to see, and he's personally one of my favorite fighters to come over from Strikeforce to the UFC. So I'm interested in seeing how he develops, but it's still way too early for us to actually see where he fits within the UFC welterweight class.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Evan Dunham had a big victory against Gleison Tebow via split decision. I want to get to the main card here. I guess we'll start with Benavidez against Ian McCall here, 29-28, 29-28, and 29-28 via unanimous decision. I want to get your thoughts on this fight because I heard some people really say that they like this fight better than the Demetrius Johnson, John Dodson fight. They said this fight was more entertaining, which I disagree with. It seems to be a lot of hate with this flyweight division. Once again, this fight getting a lot of criticism. What is the deal? Are these guys just they don't meet the height requirements, so now we just have to hate them? I don't understand what is going on here. What's happening? I mean, these guys kill each other, and then fans still don't approve.
I don't understand it, man. I actually enjoyed both fights just as much. This Joseph Benavidez and Ian McCall, it was interesting to go to the cards to see what they would actually score it. I scored it the same 29-28 for Joseph Benavidez, but I don't know what it is with people in this flyweight division. Maybe just because they don't know these guys and they already know. I mean, obviously that Joseph's probably going to fight for the title again. So it's just really interesting how disrespectful these fans can actually be when these guys are laying it on the line. And knowing, because that class isn't deep yet, that any future fight could be the title fight. And it just makes no sense to me to actually be disrespecting these guys.
Yeah, it doesn't really make any sense.
Is that the only fight you got right on the main card, man?
Let's see. I picked Benavidez, picked Fitch, got that one wrong. Picked Overeem, got that wrong. Picked Evans, got that wrong. I picked Aldo, so... Okay. I got 2 of them right. Terrible. But Damian Maia dominating John Fitch completely surprised me. I was dumbfounded by this fight. How Damian Maia can single leg takedown and get John Fitch's back for 3 rounds. It was unbelievable. I was totally blown away, taken by surprise at Damian Maia dominating Fitch like that. Was it a case of Maia superior jiu-jitsu overwhelming John Fitch? Or is John Fitch past his prime? I mean, let's just throw it out there. I mean, is John Fitch not the John Fitch of 2 years ago? And maybe we should consider him not being a top 5, top 7 welterweight in the world. What do you think's going on?
I think so, man. I think it goes all the way back to that draw that he had against B.J. Penn at a welterweight division. You know, B.J. Penn was fighting at 155 for a while. He moved up, and then he forces a draw out of this guy. I think that's when people started to think, all right, so how for real is John Fitch? And then very next fight, he gets knocked out by Johnny Hendricks. So I think that might be it, man. 34 years old. This guy has a lot of fights. I mean, he's got 30 fights. So I think with age, I think he is slowing down somewhat. And let's not forget, I mean, the guy used to be a light heavyweight also. He did fight there for a little bit. So be very interesting to see how he goes from here. But John Fitch, as you mentioned, I think he is past his prime. And we saw that. I mean, the guy was a 4-year letterman at Purdue University. So for Maia's jiu-jitsu to actually dominate him that bad, and for him not to force anything. I mean, he was on the ground for so long, man. He was completely dominated and outclassed on the ground, and it's not something typical that you see. You know, despite the fact that Damian Maia is a world-class, jiu-jitsu practitioner, I mean, there's no reason why a wrestler of that high of a pedigree should be dominated that bad on the ground.
Yeah, I agree with you. Saying that, what do you think about Damian Maia? Big-time victory for him. Do you think he's a contender now? I mean, to me, I don't think he is, because I think he's still kind of one-dimensional. I just think a lot of these guys at the welterweight, top tier of that division are going to pretty much outstrike him. And I don't think he's going to have that much success, overwhelming guys with their jiu-jitsu. People say he has Olympic quality jiu-jitsu, but at the same time, if his striking is at like a C-plus level, that's not going to get it done against a top contender.
Sure, and you say he's one-dimensional, but, I mean, let's ask Dong-Young Kim's ribs about that.
Yeah, that's true. But at the same time, in this division, can he do that to Carlos Condit?
No.
Or can he do that to Rory McDonald?
No.
Nick Diaz? I mean,
no.
You know what I'm saying? So if he does that, I'll shut my mouth. I was wrong about these picks. Who knows? But I'm not a believer fully in him, beating George St. Pierre, not just yet.
So what happened? Here's my question. Where was Damian Maia? Where was he ranked previously? I mean, right now the UFC has him ranked 5th now, behind the group of guys that you mentioned, behind GSP, Hendricks, Condit, Diaz, and McDonald. Then there's Damian Maia. I mean, do you know where he was ranked on this beforehand?
Well, beforehand, these rankings were out. Let me check the Bloody Elbow ones. My guess is he dropped down, and especially because, I think the reputation kind of hurt him in terms of, the whole Anderson Silva debacle. So I don't think a lot of people took him that seriously as a serious, title contender. Man, I'm trying to find these rankings here. Let's see. Can't find him now. I'm not really sure. My guess, he was on a winning streak before this fight. I think this is 4 in a row. I mean, Erica could correct me if I'm wrong on that. But maybe, early around 9 or 10 in the welterweight division. So
three,
I think
3 in a row. He beat Dong-Young Kim, Rick Story, and then John Fitch. So
so 3 in a row. Okay, so I think in his welterweight tournament, maybe he fights the loser of one of those guys, and then we go from there. But I think he's going to have to put it, especially because I think that Anderson Silva fight really hurts him.
Sure.
In terms of Dana White really considering putting him into a main event like that again. Let's move on to Antonio Bigfoot Silva and also Overeem. Another fight that I totally missed. Really a bizarre night for the Blackzilians, and it started with this fight. This first 2 rounds, can you describe to me what was going on? Because I was completely confused with Overeem initiating the clinch. And, in the 3rd round, him dropping his hands, totally disrespecting Silva. I mean, Overeem, I don't understand his overconfidence. He's an experienced striker, both in K1 and his previous MMA fights. Why would he make such a, rookie mistake? And he would pay for it in the 3rd round.
I think arrogance. Arrogance that, he was teasing Silva beforehand, even at the fight. I mean, what is it that he told him after the weigh-in, that he was going to kill him or something like that? Is that what happened? Is that why Silva was so upset? So, yeah, so it definitely, just the arrogance that he was coming in with, and especially coming out of this whole PED scandal, I guess you can call it, with Alistair Overeem. I think he wanted to come in to show to prove something, and I think it just got to his head, and he said, "All right, if I can defeat this guy with my hands down, I'll be able to outstrike him, and people will give me the respect once more." But he's not Roy Jones Jr. from 1998. He has to keep those damn hands up. These gloves are small enough to where any perfect shot can knock you out, man. And I was blown away by how much he disrespected him, both verbally and also in the stand-up. I mean, he's no joke. I mean, Silva's coming in with 12 knockouts in 22 fights. The guy has power.
He does, and it was just, I don't know. I was another fight where I was totally baffled. I think Overeem deserved what he got. It was very interesting on Twitter. All these fans and media members like, oh, Overeem, in the summertime of 2012, when he was trying to reapply for his license earlier, they're like, oh, Overeem's totally get his license back and totally behind him. But once he gets knocked out here, he's a drug user. Yeah. He's on the horse steroids, ban him from the sport, all this, they just turn on him so quickly. It's pretty hilarious. But I guess where we go from here, I think there's rumors, Dave Meltzer's reporting possibly that Bigfoot Silva could fight Cain Velasquez again, and Overeem is going to fight Junior Dos Santos in a summer Las Vegas card. What do you think of that, considering, Cain Velasquez pretty much destroyed Silva in their first bout?
Silva is coming off of two very impressive victories. A lot of guys thought that Big Travis, Brown was actually going to be the next guy to challenge for the title, and Bigfoot derailed that, and then he knocked off Alistair Overeem. So basically, this guy defeated two top 10 opponents in that weight class, and I think he deserves it. Obviously, we saw what happened last time, but the question is, has he fought his way back to a title, regardless of what happened last time? And I think with these two victories that he's put together, huge, especially when he was an underdog in both of them. He was almost a 3-1 underdog against Overeem. Definitely, I think, puts him back in the title contention. And, I wouldn't be mad if they gave him the fight, despite the fact of what happened last time.
I disagree with you, man. I just think
really?
Cain Velasquez murdered him. Let's just be frank. He put a weapon on him. I don't think he deserves it. It's the heavyweight division.
So what do you do? What do you do in this case then?
Excellent question.
Do you wait for Daniel Cormier? Do you wait for Verdum? What do you do?
It's an excellent question. I don't really know, because Cain, you know how it is with teammates, and that's why it's very interesting with the whole, the friendship thing with, Nick Gonzalez and Adrian Cruz earlier. Daniel Cormier does not want to fight Cain Velasquez, period. And he's going to move down and weight, even though he's never fought at 205 before. He's already calling out John Jones and getting promotion for that fight, so that's out the window. I don't know, man. I guess you're kind of stuck in a bad position. I think the Travis Brown fight has a kind of a bad taste in my mouth, considering he did get hurt. It wasn't like he completely beat him. I guess, I wouldn't be mad at it, I guess. I just don't like it being a lopsided, a fight for, Cain Velasquez. I wish it'd be a little bit more competitive than that. Let's move on to the co-main event in another bizarre fight. Rashad Evans and Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira. Nogueira getting the unanimous decision, 29-28, 29-28, 29-28. This fight was insanely bizarre, and not only for the striking, but this Rashad Evans' poor takedown attempts. Can you explain? Have you ever seen his takedown attempts be that terrible before?
No, I've never seen them fail that miserable, and I haven't seen him that. He wasn't too active standing up, man. It surprised me that he was so reserved, and he was pretty sure that he won that round. So, and here Erica tells us the word is that he injured his hand in the first round. So, if that was the case, then
I don't know. He looked totally lackadaisical, man.
He did.
He didn't want to even be in there.
He wasn't very active at all. It looked more like a just a very easy boxing sparring session whenever he was standing up.
I don't want to sound insensitive, but it just I'm like, even Rashad Evans, normally he's not my cup of tea, because I get so frustrated, because I think there's the talent there. Like a lot of people were saying, Nogueira has better striking than Rashad Evans. And I think in terms of their fights, that's true. At the same time, we see this guy, I know sparring's not the same thing as fighting. but when you see Evans let it go, man, his hands are amazing. I mean, when he lets it go fully against an opponent that he thinks he can truly finish without him reaping the consequences, Rashad Evans is incredible. But he's just so reserved, and I think he's just afraid of getting knocked out. And I think this happened before even with the Ilona Machida fight. I mean, he was considered boring then, and I think with Machida, making him do the stinking leg, as we talked about last week, I think he's just afraid of getting KO'd, and it's really affected his fight style. I think, it totally jeopardized him. This is a big fight. He could, if a victory here could have gotten him the Anderson Silva fight. Instead, it pushes him back even more. So definitely a disappointing performance by Rashad Evans, no doubt.
So what does he have to do then to actually come back, or what does he need? I mean, does he need to be that guy that that just goes in there and just goes all out, man?
He needs to let it go. I mean, look at John Jones. I mean, John Jones takes risk, like Will always says, and he's at 100% right. When you take risk, you're more entertaining, and you get to reap more of the rewards. And now you take more risk, you're susceptible to being knocked out. But Evans is the caliber athlete where I think he has a good enough defense to avoid that, in my opinion. At least with like a Phil Davis or a Ryan Bader or even like an Alexander Gustafsson. I don't really see those three guys, finishing him. Maybe beating, with Davis and Bader, maybe in a wrestling match, maybe. But even then, I pick Evans over those two, if Evans is at 100%. So this a really disappointing performance by him.
And in the last 3 years, man, he only has 3 wins. Quinn, who's on his way out, Tito, who's on his way out, and then Phil Davis, which was a decent win. You know what I mean? So, it's tough. It's going to be tough for him to make it back to the title hunt.
I agree. I want to get to this main event because we have 2 more topics to discuss. But with Jose Aldo and Frankie Edgar, Aldo getting that decision, unanimous decision, 49-46, 49-46, 48-47 to retain the featherweight title. Scores are all over the place. I know I judge actually scored it for Edgar, 48-47. A lot of people scored it for Edgar. Excuse me, I scored it a draw. I had it, 2 rounds for Aldo, 2 rounds for Edgar, and then with the third added, it's even round. It seemed like both guys had their moments in that third round. To me, I can kind of sort of see it going both ways. But I want to get your opinion on Frankie Edgar. I mean, this is his 3rd loss in a row. Controversial. I thought he beat Ben Henderson both times, in my opinion. But it's 3 losses nevertheless. Does Edgar have to evaluate his fighting style? I mean, a lot of people are saying, Frankie Edgar should drop down to 135. I mean, it's getting more ridiculous. Before you know it, he's going to be the first anorexic fighter in UFC history. I mean, fighting a pro fight. I mean, it's getting ridiculous, people trying to force him to fight at these lighter weight classes just because he's in these close bouts. So with Edgar, is it just about him dropping more weight? Is it him about changing his fight style? I mean, what does he have to do to avoid, possibly getting robbed on the judges' scorecards?
I think some of these guys just figured it out. But if you think about the 2 guys that he's fought, Jose Aldo and Benson Henderson, these guys have the height and the arm and length advantage of him. It's just bad matchup stylistically, just because of that fact. I mean, he isn't able to load up and cock these looping hooks or these short hooks that he's actually doing, because guys like Benson Henderson and Jose Aldo know how to use the distance and have done it effectively against the shorter Edgar. But when it comes to dropping more weight, I mean, he shows that he can compete with both guys. You mentioned you feel that he beat Henderson twice. I feel that he won. He actually took the second one. So
sure,
he has the ability to beat these guys. I mean, he could stay at either weight class and be competitive, I feel. It just turns out he's fighting 2 of what are probably the top 7 guys in the world. And there's no shame in losing to the 2 guys. But for people saying, I mean, keep dropping down in weight, I mean, they're crazy. He's competing with these guys at the world-class level. So he's fine at whatever weight class he chooses to be in, I think.
Yeah, it is absolutely insane. And one more thing, I don't think this was a super fight, because to compare this fight to a possible real super fight with Anderson Silva and John Jones, kind of ridiculous to me. I think Jose Aldo and Frankie Edgar is a dream match. It's a dream fight I want to see. Just like, I want to see Barnett and I don't know, Junior Dos Santos. That's a dream fight. It's not a super fight. So, nevertheless, I think them selling the super fight did work. The early pay-per-view projections coming in, If you go to Dave Meltzer's Twitter, MMA Supremacy's Twitter, they're saying around 400,000 to 500,000 pay-per-view buys. That's just a rough estimate, but
which isn't bad.
No, doing very well. Yeah, exactly. I want to get your thoughts on this whole Bellator reality show called, I guess, Fight Master. And the reason I wanted to get your opinion on this, Jorge, because this applies to a lot of the local guys fighting here on his Rio Rancho card. Do you think, these guys are not only on this card coming here on February 28th, fighting to get into a Bellator tournament, but also trying to get into this reality show with Spike? Do you see any changes compared to the Ultimate Fighter? Like, what do you want to see in this Bellator show that the Ultimate Fighter doesn't have?
I mean, oh man, I don't know what I'd like. I mean, as far as you know how I feel with these reality shows, man. I just don't like them for whatever reason. I cannot just get into them. But I guess just a little more of these guys' like personal life. I mean, it'd be cool if I know it's difficult to have the guys go back to their hometown or whatever it is, but the way the old Contenders was, so you can know these guys more on a personal level to see where they come from. And it's just too hard. Production-wise, it's too hard, and I don't think
Contender did it.
Yeah, the Contender did it, but they had a huge backing from NBC. They had that NBC
Mike
money.
Has Viacom.
You got a fair point there, but how much are they willing to spend on this? It was when the Contender came around, it was at a point where boxing was at one of its lowest levels. So that helped generate it. I mean, when you have MMA as high as it is now, does it really need the show to drive it, or are people really interested in seeing this since they're getting either a free card or a pay-per-view card every single weekend? And even during the week, I mean, you got Bellator. So how much MMA can you actually drive into the hardcore fans and the general public?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think with this reality show, the bottom line is, are these fighters going to be anything at the end of the day? And I think with this show, with The Ultimate Fighter, as we saw with the first episode, everybody had a sob story. It's like, the mom has cancer. One guy, I got a divorce. The other guy, my house burned down. Like, everybody has a sob story. They all blend the same. No one stands out because everybody has this, horrible story or uplifting story.
Sure.
And it's like, the guy with the two kids and, that was standing ringside. He lost. So what good is that? He's not in the competition anymore. You're probably not going to see him fight again unless you live in that guy's state. So to me, I want to see, with this Bellator show, I want to see some fight footage from regional shows. I want to see, some knockouts, some finishes. I want to get at least excited. This guy has a cool finish. This guy had a cool submission, or this guy's solid, 10-0. I want to see, maybe Bellator work with some local promotions, hyping these guys up so I get excited about them in the ring. I mean, the personal backstories are nice, but at the end of the day, this is a competition. I think you've seen, with the NFL draft, a lot of hardcore fans are into these guys 40 times, how high they can jump, even the stupid Wonder League tests, people are into that stuff. And I think with MMA, it could be very similar and to get into the nitty-gritty of what these guys can do. And instead, it's kind of the same thing over and over again. And at the end of the day, they're kind of the same fighters we see every season.
And also, you're bringing up this whole coaching situation, and they're dropping these names. Now, what I've heard, I mean, spoiler alert for everyone else, but from what I understand is that Greg Jackson has a very small cameo in this, and the coaches are out of the Jackson's cap. It's Joey Villasenor and Damasio Page who are actually going to be coaching these guys, with Greg Jackson having a very small role. So I hate to if I messed that up for anybody.
Interesting.
I mean, there it is. So who knows what Bellator is doing by dropping names like this, and how much the other guys besides
he was
Greg
at the
Jackson
press conference. Yeah. Well, in that case, Jorge, who knows if Randy Couture is going to be, how much he's going to be on the show. I think he's going to be on it a lot because Spike TV has huge plans with him. At the same time, he does run Extreme Couture. Maybe the same thing could happen there.
Yeah, and that's what I think also. So who knows what they're actually trying to do with this.
Yeah. We have about 6 minutes left, and I want to talk about these ridiculous UFC rankings. Are you excited about these rankings? If so,
not really, to be honest.
Okay,
I was going to say, because I told you before, it's like I didn't realize, or I hadn't even thought of the UFC actually compiling their own rankings. You're just so used to seeing Bloody Elbows or ESPN's rankings or whomever it may be, or even developing your own rankings. For the most part,
the rankings seem to be pretty universal. I mean, I don't hear too many people saying, "Oh, that's a ridiculous ranking that Sherdog has in this weight class." You know what I mean? It seems people are pretty consistent in how they actually have these set up. I mean, I'm looking at their rankings, and I agree with most of them. But as far as, are they necessary? I mean, I don't know. If they're just going to go out of the way and bring guys from other weight classes to, leapfrog all these other guys, and, then it's just boxing, man.
Yeah, I agree with you. Can you compare this to Ring Magazine and Dana White's field to put these rankings out there? He said, when you watch, like college football, you have, Notre Dame's number 1 and Alabama's number 2, and you get a good sense of what's going on. But that creates more controversy because people hate the BCS. So now you're creating a bigger headache because now you have these official rankings, you're not going by them, and now people are going to get outraged, with this whole, like I'm trying to look at featherweight, Chad Mendes, he's the number 1 contender in this division, and Ricardo Lamas is beaten as one of the top guys, and he's still ranked number 2. So, I mean, Mendes is not getting a title shot. Lamas is not getting a title shot. It's Anthony Pettis. So, I just don't understand you're creating another headache for yourself. I mean, already going to get controversy for giving a guy a title shot in a division that he doesn't even fight in. Now you create these rankings and you're going to create more headaches. I don't really understand the logic here.
No, and I don't understand it either. I mean, at least it's not as bad as, boxing where you have 4 different lists because you don't have an overruling commission for the sport. So I think that's why I'm willing to, okay, all right, you have this list. You're not going to go by it. At least you don't have 3 other lists that are competing with this one. So at least it gives us some sort of ideas of what fights we can expect in the future. But are they going to go by it 100%? We know they aren't. We know they're not because they haven't.
Mm-hmm. If these rankings are to be taken seriously, do you think there should be mandatory challengers? Like with the featherweight division, maybe, I don't know. You know more about this than I do, man. Pettis gets a title shot, and then there's the mandatory who's ranked number 1 gets the next one. Would that work possibly?
I think so. I mean, definitely, it'll make a lot more sense, more than it did before, where everything was just kind of in limbo. Where, all right, this guy beat this guy. How long is he going to wait before the next title fight? But until you had Dana White or one of these, one of the matchmakers actually setting it up or giving you an official word, you just didn't know who you were actually going to fight next. But for instance, the way the lightweight division is set up. All right, Benson Henderson against Gilbert Melendez. If this were boxing, Anthony Pettis would be next in line for that title. In boxing, Anthony Pettis would be okay to move down a weight class, as he's doing against Jose Aldo. Win or lose, he still gets a shot at the winner of Benson Henderson and Gilbert Melendez in that lightweight class. So it'd be interesting to see if they still give him that and if they reserve his spot in the previous weight class. I mean, we're seeing it with Chael Sonnen. He moved up from middleweight to light heavyweight. He's not ranked in either one of them just because of his decision to move. So will spots be held for these guys also, like they are in boxing? So still very interesting to see how this does play out, man.
Yeah, it's very bizarre considering, there's a Twitter post supposedly by Gray Maynard saying he wants to drop the featherweight. So, Gray Maynard's ranked number 3 on here. If Anthony Pettis gets a good fight to Jose Aldo, but Aldo wins, do we put the big bad wrestler in there with him next with Maynard? I mean, then your featherweights continue to get robbed of their, title shots. I mean, What's the point in fighting a division where you're not even going to get to fight the champion,
Agreed.
Very bizarre. One more minute here. Anything else you wanted to add?
I think that's about it, man. It sucks, but it seems like the actual injury bug that bit the UFC last year is biting boxing a little bit. We've had 3 big fights canceled or pushed back here recently, so hopefully it goes away early.
Yeah, that's a bummer. Tomorrow, if you're in the Albuquerque area, it's Lovato Total Fitness. They're doing an all-amateur boxing, kickboxing, smoker series. That's tomorrow, February 8th. Doors open at 5:30. Fights start at 6:30. Admission's $12. That's actually be presented by Southwest Fight News. So you get some time to kill tomorrow, and so want to see two people and beat each other up, go out and check out Lovato Total Fitness in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Go ahead and check that out. So
yeah, and definitely, and also tomorrow night, one more thing, there's another smoker. NHB is hosting a smoker too downtown Albuquerque. So
oh wow,
either way, downtown or west side of the part of town, make sure you go check one of them out.
Are those happening at the same time?
They are happening at the same time.
Oh, wow. Jeez. Competition with the smokers, man.
Yes,
wow.
sir.
Cool. So, as always, you get in touch with Five Fans Radio through Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Ustream. Also through us, through Twitter and Facebook. Also through our email, through loblo505@gmail.com. And we're also available on Stitcher and iTunes. So, for Jorge Hernandez, I'm Justin Goodrum. Thank you very much, Adrian Cruz, for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Peace.